I've just sat down for the first time with our new patient, and our other new patient. Billing department, please remember to bill him for 2 sessions. Thank you. We made a great deal of progress, and I learned much about his backstory that I did not realize when I first did his intake. My main takeaway from him is that everything about our patient goes back to his childhood, and that childhood was a lot darker than we at first realized. It's not easy getting an accurate personal history on fictional characters because some of them move around a lot. The narrator is one of those people. He was born in a literary universe, then moved to a cinematic universe, and then when the rent got too high, he moved to a graphic novel universe. And graphic novel universes are the places where very weird things can happen to continuities. Our intake assessment was based on his time in the film, but the novels have many important clues to what I think is the main cause of his DID. The first thing we learned from the graphic novel is our patient's name, Sebastian.
His name is
Sebastian, and we also learned that Tyler Durden is almost like a living entity that's passed along from father to son. The plot of the graphic novel is Sebastian attempting to keep Tyler from taking over his own son. Or at least, that is the story as Sebastian understands it. Let's put the puzzle pieces together. Tyler Durden appears to be an alter or second personality that is one of the characteristics of dissociative identity disorder. In my initial diagnosis, I dismissed the classical theory of DID for Sebastian due to the absence of significant trauma seen in the movie. But I now suspect that Sebastian's father, on top of being neglectful and absent, was likely also physically abusive. The first piece of evidence is in the split between Sebastian and Tyler Durden. According to some clinicians who work on DID, the personality split can be a very extreme way of dealing with abuse by subconsciously imagining that the scary memory happened to someone else, someone stronger. When Sebastian speaks about his father, he only recalls the absence, nothing violent. However, when Tyler recalls his father, he talks about him having a directive relationship over Tyler's life up to and through his adulthood.
My dad never went to college, so it's real important that I go. So I graduate, I call him up long distance. I said, Dad, now what? He says, get a job. My yearly call again. I say, Dad, now what? He says, I don't know, get married.
But Tyler is Sebastian. So psychologically, what would it mean for Tyler and Sebastian to have different fathers? Could it be that at the age that Sebastian remembers his father leaving was when the abuse started? And that he dissociated from the remainder of his childhood, experiencing it as the tougher, more aggressive version of himself, Tyler Durden. Another clue is how Sebastian views the controlling, physically dominating Tyler as a father figure, in that he and Tyler bond over violence. Sebastian's expectation with Tyler and other men is that to be connected, they need to hit each other. An odd fixation and isolation, but consistent with a childhood that alternated between neglect and physical abuse. Lastly, as we learned from the graphic novel, Tyler Durden is a living meme that has passed from father to son, which is interesting. Remember what I said about graphic novel continuities. But as I mentioned in my initial diagnosis, Sebastian is an imaginative young man working with a fragmented and dissociated personal history. So this could be the way that he is imagining what mental health professionals call intergenerational continuity of abuse. If Tyler Durden is the psychological legacy of abusiveness and relational toxicity, then this odd meme story arc could be how Sebastian is viewing his decision to choose healing and give his son a better childhood than he had. I'd be interested to hear what you guys think. Do you think that Sebastian's dissociation could be a result of childhood trauma he doesn't remember? Let me know in the comments.